Kura team, welcome to DayZ. Welcome to what will be the probably almost definitely maybe might be 100% complete review of all guns in DayZ. Technical light, I guess. And I say that because there's a lot of guns. There's a lot of guns laid out here. There's a lot of guns laid out down there. There's a lot of guns laid out along here. There's a lot of guns, and along with all of these guns comes lots of different things like attachments, which I will discuss about, magazines, um, various things that you can do to them, such as, for example, you may be able to modify them and saw things off. Some of the assault rifles and things have different kinds of handrails and various other attachment systems that you can decide to put in place or not put in place. And we also have differences between what's effectively kind of two sets of guns on the server, those from the east and those from the west. And the ones from the west are called Alliance, and the east are not called Alliance. And there's some things that will work on some weapons from the east, won't work from the west, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to cover why I'm calling it technical light is I'm going to cover a lot of things, but not 100% of things. And I'm going to cover quite a lot of attachments, but not all attachments for all situations, because there are just so many of them in so many different interchangeable ways that it's just simply not realistic. Nor is it something that you really want me to do, I'm sure. And one of the other things that I'm not going to cover is ballistic mechanisms. So I'm not going to... Oh, it's going to get cloudy. I'm not going to cover things like this gun fires at this rate, at this muzzle velocity, and has this many rounds per second, and all of that kind of stuff. If you want to go and learn that kind of technical detail, I will put a link to Wobo's Weapon Tools website, which is a massive, great big database where he has data mined all of the information on these weapons, and you can go in and compare the stats if stats comparisons is what gets you up and rising in the morning. Not so for me. One of the other things about the various weapons that you'll find here on the server, and one of the things that people have asked me in my time on the server, and because of the way I play on the server and things, is which weapons are the best, and which weapon is the best weapon, and that's probably the wrong question, and it's certainly not a question that has a single answer. And the reason that question doesn't have a single answer is because, in my opinion, after years of playing games like this and various shooter games, first person and third person and otherwise, a very good player is dangerous with any of these. Any of these weapons in a good player's hands, they have the potential to do you some very serious harm, if not kill you outright. If you are a really rubbish player with bad aim, not mentioning anybody in particular, then it doesn't matter what weapon you have, you're still going to be a rubbish player with bad aim, and you're still possibly going to miss people, or you're still not going to be making the best use of the weapon. So I don't think that I'm ever going to be able to class any of these weapons as the best weapon on the server. There are some weapons that are very, very good. The DMR, which is down here, for example, is obviously a very good weapon, and lots of people say so. And that's great. It's fantastic. It's absolutely not bad. I'm not going to be using it for clearing towns of Zeds, though. Right? So that's not really its best use, to be honest. And it's a long rifle. You might for a close quarters thing, want more of a Vakir style assault rifle. You might find that that's actually a bit more valid for in and around town combat than the DMR, because it's an assault rifle. It's got a high rate of fire and it's dangerous. So I'm not of a mind to say this is the best, that's the best, this is the everything else. I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of muzzle velocities, shots per second, various things like that. But I will be covering the different classes of weapon, which I'll talk about in a second. And I will also be covering things like magazines, the magazine capacity, how much space they take up, some of the attachments and the ways to use some of the attachments, some of the ways to repair and maintain the gun, for example, some of the things that can go wrong with the guns, and having a look at some possible uses for some of the guns that I have used in the past. I have probably at some point or other picked, handled, and fired all of the guns at some point. Possibly not in all of their configurations, but I will certainly be getting into that and having a look at that. And this is more of sort of an informational thing that you can have over your coffee and cereal, and maybe some things that you do not know, and maybe some things that you do know. Anyway, there you go. Welcome to the DayZ Technical on all things guns. Right, so starting out, well, how many different kinds of guns are there around? Well, there's pistols. There's a lot of pistols. There's submachine guns, and there is another space here for a submachine gun, which hopefully shall be arriving shortly. There are the rifle class, which are here. There is the shotgun class. There is the crossbow, which kind of sits on its own because it's an impact projectile rather than actually a bullet or a shotgun cartridge. There are the various sniper rifles, and then there are the assault weapons. And these are just a couple of ammo boxes. I don't know if you've ever seen ammo boxes before. We'll have a look at a little bit at those later. So there you go. There's the 7 general classes. So let's start off by having a look here at the pistol class. And we'll start with the smallest of the pistol class, which is the mighty old Derringer. So the Derringer's just really tiny, and it's as I'm sure you know, I mean it's this tiny little thing. It only has 2 shots in it. It carries 3.57 rounds, the same as a Magnum, and they're somewhat infamous in the past as being a lady's gun to keep in her purse so that they could use to defend themselves from various meanies and stuff like that. So makes a heck of a noise, and you only get 2 shots, but maybe up close and personal, it's the kind of thing that might appeal to you. It's definitely a civilian weapon. It's very small. It's very light, under 0.5 kg. It's never going to have a high rate of fire, and I find 3.57s are not necessarily an easy ammunition to find, but it's definitely something that you could use in a pinch, I guess, and you generally find them down by the coast. In terms of attachments, none. So pretty simple. That's the Derringer. We have the P1 here. So the P1 slightly different. So it's a 919 weapon, and it's very limited again in terms of attachments. It will take a pistol suppressor. I don't think I have any pistol suppressors on me. It will take a temporary suppressor, and it looks absolutely ridiculous as a result, but it will take one. I'll talk about making one of these temporary bottle suppressors at some point. And again, old semi-automatic is what it says. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't have any other zeroing or anything like that, which I'll talk about as well. It's just effective at short range, and yeah, kind of thing that probably is good for clearing Zeds, although you do have to be aware that you probably want a full pistol suppressor on it to make it effective. P1, civilian areas mainly, I would say. We got the FX45, which is more of a military variant. I mean, it's not too bad. Um, tend to find those usually in and around associated with military stuff. It will take these, which is the pistol optics that it will take is a mini pistol sights. We'll have a look at that later. It will take a flashlight, which is the pistol flashlight, which I actually have the mini sights here. So you can see you get this little optic here, which is not fantastic. It needs a battery for a start, and I think you get a red dot on it. So here we go. There you go. There's your pistol optic. And I think there's a pistol flashlight possibly in my inventory or possibly on one of my other weapons. Anyway, we'll have a look at that. It has a little flashlight on it which you can use. So not too bad. Yeah, it's a handy little gun. Again, I'm not a fan of the 45s. I'd have to say, in my experience, the 45s have slightly less punching power than the 919s, but that's maybe just me. The IJ-70, also called the Makarov in the files. Again, it's pretty simple. It has 12 rounds of 380 to it. It has the pistol suppressor, which is allowed, but it won't take anything else. It won't take any other attachments. You've just got the suppressor, and you've got the standard mag taking 380s, and that's that. Yeah, again, not a fan of 380s. I think 380s are a little bit too hard to find, so it's not a gun that I would go out of my way to get. But if you pick it up on the coast and it's going to save you, I'd maybe keep it around. We now move on to the M-Lock. The M-Lock you'll find often associated with police stations, police departments, and various other places, and it will occasionally turn up in military stuff. I'm assuming it's meant to be a kind of a play on the Glock, as it were. You'll see that it takes the mini sights, it also takes the mini torch, and it takes the suppressor, and it has a magazine, 15 rounds, 919. So that's all right. This is probably one of my more favorite weapons in terms of clearing Zeds. It's very handy. It's definitely a one-shot to the head job. It's nice and quiet, and it will definitely deal with Zeds, and it's very abundant, and the 919 ammo is also very abundant. So it's definitely a preferred weapon of mine, is the M-Lock. Move on to the Colt, which is definitely a military weapon. Obviously, it's, as I say, century-old design, uses 45s. Again, I'm not super happy on the 45s, partly in abundance. It's got the little torch, which will go on. You can see the little effect from the light. So if you're in a dark area and you need to clear Zeds, that's fine. Obviously, you know the downside to using lights when you're out and about. Got the suppressor. Got a magazine which holds not so much, 7 rounds. So including one in the chamber, it's capable of firing 8, and it's the 45s. So there you go. There's also an engraved variant, which is this one, which is exactly the same. It just has this death head on it, and it's just really for aesthetic purposes. But it's exactly the same weapon, does exactly the same things, and there you go. So that's that. Down here we've got the good old Deagle, which is of course, I'm assuming, meant to be the Desert Eagle, and it has the capacity for the sights, the suppressor, and it also has its own magazine, which takes up to 9 rounds of 357, so one in the chamber will fire 10. Yeah, all of the same rules and regulations and everything apply. Semi-auto means you have to continually pull the trigger, obviously, to get it to work. It won't change any of the zeroing or anything like that. And Yeah, I mean, it takes up a capacity of 8. It weighs quite a bit, 2 kg. It's getting on a touch, but it's still one of those things that some people really like and really get into. This is the somewhat notorious gold version of the Deagle, um, which has the sights on it. Again, as you can see, this is purely for show, really, isn't it? I mean, it's quite gaudy, and it does stick out, um, which is fine. Um, if that's what you want, and that's what you want, it's entirely up to you. And I know some people that very much want it, so there you go. That's that. CR75. This is a tiny little pipsqueak of a gun, I guess. It's about 1 kg, takes up 6. Does fire 919s. Will take all of the same things. It will take a suppressor. It will take a flashlight. It will take mini sights. It has its own magazine, which carries a hefty amount of rounds in it, 15. And it's quite abundant, the CR75. You'll find the CR75 in a lot of places. You know, and it does the job, and that's what you want. If it's going to be clearing Zeds, is what you want with pistols. Most of these things, you're going to wound a player, but unless you're headshotting people who are not wearing helmets, that's probably what you're going to be doing. But yeah, there you go. It's not too bad. Crops up in civilian areas. You might find it quite a bit up and down the coast, and it's not bad as a starter or a backup, something to keep in place. Just in case something goes horribly wrong. We'll have a look at the revolvers now. A couple of things you haven't talked about is modifying, but this is one of the first things that we can modify. So this is your this is obviously your Magnum revolver, right? Or at least it's styled on the Magnum revolver. It carries 6 357s. It's a big old hunk. 8 weighs a kg. There's very little you can do with it in terms of adding anything to it. It won't take a scope, it won't take a suppressor, it won't take anything. It is what it is. It's a revolver. The benefit you've got is you can saw it off. So you can actually get a saw and snub nose it, and then it only takes up 4. It still weighs about a kg, but it only takes up 4, and it still says it's effective to 25. But you're really doing it for space more than anything, and I guess it's like last line of defense. If things go wrong during a firefight and you've got a snub-nosed revolver firing 357s, a couple of those to the appropriate portion of your personage or the other person's personage will definitely sort it out. We've got here in pistols this thing, which is the Longhorn, which is very interesting. It fires 308s, which is a rifle round, and it's called a single shot break action hunting pistol, and you only get 1 round with this thing, and that's it. It's really not, I guess it's really not a combat weapon. Unlike most of the pistols, which are obviously designed for combat, this is designed for hunting. It's a hunting pistol that fires a big round that you can use to take down a deer or anything like that. It comes with a hunting scope, really, which is what that is, modified to fit on a handgun. But you can fit it with a bottle suppressor. I don't think you can fit it with any other suppressor. We can certainly soon check that by moving down here. And what we'll do is we will pick up one of our friends, and we will pick up one of those, and we will find our Longhorn, and it will not attach. So it doesn't give me the option to attach it. So although the Longhorn has room for a suppressor, the only suppressor that it's going to fit on the Longhorn is going to be the bottle suppressor, and I will talk about that later. So yeah, not really for defense. This is really one for hunting. You find it mostly in civilian hunting areas, camps, and cabins, and hunting stands, various other bits and pieces. Probably not going to find it down by the coast. Might suit you while you're waiting to find a good hunting rifle, I suppose. And this is the Mark II. So the Mark II is the only integrally suppressed pistol that there is. And it only shoots 22s. Has a magazine, which holds 10. So with one in the barrel, it will fire 11. It's quiet by comparison. And a lot of people swear by it. Takes up 8, about 1 kg. A lot of people pick it up, use it, never put it down. Always have it, always use it for clearing Zeds. One headshot with this will kill a Zed. Absolutely it will. No doubt about it. You just need to care for it, maintain it, keep it repaired with gun cleaning kits, and it will be fine. And you can use it to your heart's content. Not actually my preferred weapon for clearing Zeds. The reason that I say that it's not my preferred weapon for clearing Zeds is that it, if you miss, there's no point shooting them with it again, because the 22 isn't going to do any damage really, unless you miss the first time and hit them in the head the second time. If they hear you and they come after you, switch to something else, one of these things over here that has a lot more punching power, because that's just not going to work in terms of dealing with the Zeds. It just isn't. So there you go. There's a brief overview of pistols. Some pistols come with flashlights. Some pistols come with mini sights that require batteries and various other things. Some can be sawn off. Some are integrally suppressed. Some are single shot brick action. They have a variety of different magazine sizes and various other bits and pieces that can go wrong with them. In terms of weapon jamming, again, the Wobo website can take you into all of the details about jamming, but single action guns like a Derringer cannot jam. Magazine operated guns can and will jam. Longhorn won't jam. Mark II will jam. The revolvers, as far as I know, won't jam. So that may be something else you want to take into account. You have this revolver and it's loaded with 6 shots. You're absolutely guaranteed to get 6 shots. You have a Deagle in, maybe it's not in great condition, maybe it's in worn condition. Maybe you have a magazine that's in worn condition. There's a fair chance that somewhere along the line while you're trying to use it, it's going to jam and then you're going to have no shots. There you go. That is pistols. Right, so here we are with rifles. There's not that many in the rifle category, which is a bit of a surprise. And you may say, what? But there are longer weapons that appear in other parts, like particularly snipers and assault rifles and things. But there are some rifles. We'll probably start with the simplest of the rifles, which is the Sporter 22, which is a 22 ammunition weapon, obviously, which means you can use it for taking out Zeds. Probably wouldn't really want to use it for taking out anything else. It's only got this range, it's semi-auto, and it won't do anything else. And it's a 22. You can put a ghillie wrap on it, and you know, we'll show you some of the other weapons with the ghillie wraps. I don't think I have a ghillie wrap in here amongst all of the other accoutrements that I have. In terms of suppressor, I'm pretty certain that the only suppressor this is going to take is going to be your bottle suppressor, so that's fine. Still got a bit of an echo on it, since they were messing around with bottle suppressor sounds and things. And it will take, I think that will take a hunting scope. I don't think any of the other scopes that I have here will definitely work for it. So it's really only the hunting scopes, which are over on the longer range sniper rifles, that you're going to get onto the Sporter 22. And yeah, like I said, it's a longer range version. I mean, it takes up 27 slots. That's a lot of slots. It's not very heavy, but it's also not very effective. So I don't know. It's entirely up to you what you want to do with that. We've got the repeater carbine, which is fine. And it also appears with a ghillie, and while it has a suppressor slot, you're only ever really going to get the bottle suppressor on it, which is absolutely fine, I suppose. Obviously, it's the old style repeater, so it uses 357. Which is, that's what you get out of that. I've mentioned about the availability of 357 rounds before. It's slow. I mean, you obviously heard the rounds. That's cocking itself. It's pretty slow. It only is a single shot. It isn't going to zero. Well, it comes in zeroing at 50 or 100 if you look at the bottom. So to zero a weapon, you're holding L2 and you're using either the down and the up on the D-pad. Oh, and it goes out to 300 actually. So what that basically means is essentially it's optimizing the scope aiming for 300, so you're looking at a longer shot versus if you're up close at 50, and it changes. I'm not an expert on zeroing or all of those kinds of things now that the rain has come in. If you want to go and see something on that, there are plenty of other people to see way beyond this video to get into that. Moving on, we have this thing, which is the BK-18. The BK-18 is an interesting one. It's a break action rifle, so it's a single shot, but it fires 7.62 39s, which are a fairly meaty hunting round, and you'll find them a lot on the map, especially out in the campgrounds and out in the hunting areas and various other bits and pieces. Again, it's a break action, so that's it. Yeah, one is all you get. It'll wrap up with a ghillie, and again, it's only going to use the temporary bottle suppressor. Takes up 27, weighs about 3 kgs, so takes up a lot of room, and it's heavy. And I don't believe you can saw it off. I've got a saw here. Let's see. Oh, we can. We can saw it off. Let's see what a sawed off BK-18 looks like. Around and round we go. There you go. You get this sawed off variant, which is a little bit more gangland violence, shall we say. Again, single action, 7.62 39. Takes up 10, weighs about the same. You might be able to make a bit of a mess of some people with that, for sure. And then we have this bad boy, which is the SK5966, which is a 10-shot semi-automatic with an integral magazine, so it cannot jam, which is jolly good news, I suppose. It'll zero up to 300. It'll zero all the way up to 1300 with the appropriate scope. Now that's 1.3 kilometers. That is a heck of a distance if you can get a solid aim over that distance. And you can plan for the trajectory of your bullet and everything else. So you'll find this an awful lot in military roadblocks and various other bits and places all over the early part of the map. So it's a very good early on rifle to get from that perspective. It will work over any range, provided you got the scope. The scope for this is only the PU scope. This is the only scope that will work on the Mosin or the SK5966. But it does go a heck of a distance. Suppressor wise, it will only use the bottle suppressor. It does have a bayonet that you can fit to it, the SK59 bayonet, and you can wrap it up in a ghillie. Not too bad, all in all. I mean, yeah, it's a fairly solid weapon if you can master it. And 27, heavy, 5 kg, but 7.62 39 rounds. You'll find them all over the map. So there you go. There's the rifles, and I don't think you can saw it off. No, you cannot. You can tell by the structure of it. You're not going to be able to saw it off. So there you go. There are the simple rifles. Right. So let's have a look at the shotguns and the crossbow. So there's a number of shotguns that appear in the game. There's the BK-43. which is your fairly standard double action shotgun, which has very little all else to do with it. It takes 12 gauge bucks and slugs, as it says, and you can fit it with a ghillie, and that's the sucker. It says that there's a variation that you can fire it in double. I've never found that to be the case on console, so I'm not sure where that fits or how that does. If someone does know, please feel free to let me know. And like the shotguns, like some of the other weapons, you can saw them off, of course, and you can get a sawed-off shotgun. Which, of course, you all know the point of having a sawed-off shotgun, etc., 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 etc. So, there we go. One sawed-off BK. All a bit lock, stock, and two smoking. Absolutely. Why not? Can everybody stop getting shot? So there you go. BK-12. Another shotgun. But this is different this time because it's a break action, what they call a Spartan shotgun, doing 12 gauge. One single shot. There you go. Very nice. Not a lot else. 27, 3 kg. Again, big room. You can definitely saw it down, of course, and get a lot smaller room with any of the shotguns. They're obviously civilian weapons, they're farming weapons, they're originally designed for hunting birds and various other bits and pieces. They're not the kind of thing that's fantastic, but the sawed-off versions, you know, again, fine, takes up 10, less room, might be the kind of thing you keep about your person, just in casey. Then we have the BK-133, which is the pump-action shotgun, which is anyone who's watched any of my stuff before knows it's definitely something I like. Yeah, I definitely like the pump-action shotgun myself. I think it's a very, very handy piece of kit to have. It does take up 27. It does weigh about 3 kg. You cannot saw it off, but it is a very handy piece of kit. You can fit it with the mini sights, which is the same as the pistol sights. You remember that the Gold Eagle had? So you can actually put the sights on it so you can get a dot on the edge, and you can use that as part of your aiming scenario, aiming situation, aiming whatever. And yeah, it's not bad. It is not bad at all. Works well with Zeds close up if they get a little bit too up close and personal, and it will work well against players. It's a very handy piece of kit, in my opinion. Now then, we add into this thing the Vega. Now, this is very definitely a combat shotgun, which is military, described as similar in design to the KA assault rifles, which, just in case you don't know, is based on the AK assault rifles, as far as I'm aware. You can actually put scopes on it. I think, what have we got in here that would fit on an AK? You could fit this on it. So we've definitely got that. Here we go. So we can zero up with the scope on it. It says it'll go out to 1,000 meters with a shotgun slug, presumably. But just because it says it does that doesn't mean it's going to be effective to that, I would say. It says it's pretty much effective to 25 meters. So although the scope would take you that far, I dare say that you would probably not get that far with the Vega. It does. You can wrap it in ghillie. It does come with a standard magazine, which I think is down here somewhere. It is, in fact, this magazine here. This magazine is the standard 8-round Vega mag, so it takes 8. But I've got on here another variant of that, which is the drum mag, which can hold up to 20 shells. And for a shotgun, it can make an awful lot of noise in semi-auto. And it can make an awful lot of damage, as you can imagine. So it's definitely a military-style shotgun, definitely dangerous at close range, but it's not the kind of thing that you're going to be using at long range. Just be aware that because the scope will go out to 1,000 meters, doesn't mean you'll be shooting a Vega out to 1,000 meters. So that's notionally the shotguns there. I mean, I suppose the Vega, how much does it weigh? It weighs 21. Sorry, it takes up 21, but it's heavy, about 6 kgs. Now, it's probably also heavy because I'm carrying this drum around, but it is a heavy piece of kit. So do be aware, it is an up close and personal but heavy piece of kit to be carrying around. Yeah. Yeah, this is shotguns. I've got crossbow in here next to shotguns, and we'll talk about it in the same vein. As any of you know, the crossbow is absolutely one of my favorites, but it has to be, certainly in terms of slot size, the largest weapon. 45 slots. Most of these other weapons you've seen have been like 25s, 27s, etc., etc. Some of the other weapons on the other side might be higher, but 45, nothing comes close. Nothing comes close. It weighs about 3 kg, so it's not super heavy, but it does take up an awful lot of slot size in your inventory. Of course, it's your primary weapon and it's on your shoulder. That slot size doesn't actually matter to us, which is fine, but it certainly is something that's going to take up a lot of space. I've got this one with combat sights on. So this is the kind of image you get with the combat sights, which is absolutely fine. I mean, it says out to 100. I would say 50 max is probably what you're going to get out of it, to be honest. And it also depends on the rounds that you're using. In this case, the crossbow rounds that I'm using are an improvised round with feather on it, and you can see those here. It's an improvised bolt which comes with a feather. It flies relatively true over probably 25 meters and slightly beyond, but probably not much beyond that. So I wouldn't be using it for super long distance, but you can still take out a Z at long distance, and it nearly always is a guaranteed one-shot kill. The only times where I've had issues with it is infected military at distance. They can often take at least one hit with a crossbow, and you might have to hit them twice. It's one of the few things you can improvise your own ammo for. In fact, it's the only thing you can improvise your own ammo for. Ammo quite literally grows on trees. I've done things before. You go out, you grab some sticks, you sharpen some sticks, you add some chicken feathers, and you have bolts. When you've used the bolts, go cut down some more trees, get some more sticks, find some more chicken feathers, make some more bolts. You never have to worry about ammo if you've got a crossbow, because the ammo is quite literally everywhere. For players, I've used it against players before. It's not a one-shot kill for players. It inflicts a bleed on them. It can be incapacitating, but it's not nearly as good as a military weapon. In terms of whether it'll take other sites, let's have a look and see what we've got. We've got ATOGs, so it'll take an ATOG. It says here it will take an RVN, so we've got an RVN on it as well, which is very nice. What else have we got over here that might fit on it? We had the combat sights we talked about. I don't think iron sights are going to work. We got another ATOG 32. Won't take a PU. It will take Baraka sights. We've already said for RVNs, and we've already said for that. Maybe a couple of other sights that it takes. So yeah, it's entirely up to you. It's pretty versatile. I like it. I'm pretty sure other people do too. So do be aware of that with the crossbow. Well, that's pretty much it for, I guess, the first part. And I'm going to call it the first part because they were all of the civilian weapons. And I've got here submachine guns, sniper rifles, and assault rifles, which are clearly not civilian weapons. They're clearly military weapons. They're clearly the kind of thing that's pretty hardcore and something that you're going to get involved to. Certainly in the game, but perhaps later in the game, or for different elements of the game, particularly in terms of PvP. Before I go, I did of course show you on a number of occasions these improvised suppressors and said, you know, a lot of those weapons, they have a slot for a suppressor, but the suppressor is not something that comes as standard, versus some of these other suppressors here. We have like this, which is very clearly a pistol suppressor, and we have up here what's called the standardized suppressor, which works on Alliance Forces rifles, as I've said before. And there's another one which I don't think I've got here, but it is on some of the weapons over there, which is called the normalized suppressor, which works on the KAs. So if you want to make one of these plastic bottle suppressors, and I will point out, as it says here, they're very flimsy, so they're only good for a couple of shots, really depending on whatever it is that you're firing through it and how frequently. But you grab yourself your water bottle, and it doesn't really matter if it's got water in it or not, and you grab yourself your duct tape, and it says craft plastic bottle suppressor, and crafting plastic bottle suppressor is exactly what you get. There we go, one plastic bottle suppressor. So that's it. That's the end of the civilian section, and I'm going to deal with the military weapons, with the submachine guns, with the sniper rifles, albeit I also understand that there are civilian sniper rifles in that category, and we will talk about those too, and the assault rifles. So predominantly from civilian, and I get the same with the pistols. Some pistols are military-style pistols, military-ish pistols. There are some sniper rifles which are really hunting rifles per se, or probably militia rifles more accurately amongst some of them. And we're going to move on to some of the military stuff. So stay tuned for part 2. Please click a like, please subscribe to the channel, please click the bell notification, and I will see you all for the next one. Ta-ta for now.